Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about PlayStation because it's pretty obvious that currently they are absolutely freaking out. We've seen Sony begin to close studios, we're seeing some of their games actually straight up flop, and it feels like the future of PlayStation is in a very strange spot. The pivot to live service games has clearly been an epic failure for Sony. Their whole idea of going from their single-player legacy, the games that made them literally not only the biggest company on the planet, but so incredibly popular. Stuff like Gran Turismo, Ratchet & Clank, Infamous, Spider-Man, Sackboy, God of War. This stuff to them is not profitable enough. Sony has explicitly stated that their goal is to try and go towards a live service game industry, to try and be more like Fortnite, something where they can constantly have waves of microtransactions, of update patches, of tweaks and changes that create maximum profit for minimal return. My problem with this is that clearly Sony is starting to freak out because they realize the mistake they've made. But I'm choosing to take this as a good sign. Let me explain why. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, real quick before we start to go into headlines and news and stuff like that, I do want to say I am not anti-multiplayer. I love multiplayer. I play a lot of multiplayer, but when I think about my favorite Sony memories, my favorite times holding a PlayStation controller, it is those cool times where I'm actually experiencing a great story, a great world, a great chance to just hold the controller and play an RPG or something that really blows my mind. This is what got me to love PlayStation in the first place, and while there are a lot of good multiplayer games, I guess I just don't think about Sony as doing this hard pivot into making as many live service expensive projects as possible. So a big inspiration for this video was this tweet I saw yesterday that said, this year in 2024, PlayStation has closed more studios than released first-party exclusives. Now, this is insane, and I guess technically you could consider this as half true because they've done some remasters and ports and stuff like that, but mathematically, when we're talking actual, new, big-budget first-party games, this is 100% correct. They've closed 3 studios and they've released 2 games. At least to my memory, there's Astrobot and there's Concord, and that's it. That's insane to me. And I do see people actually saying that Sony has been a mess, that PlayStation has been a mess ever since Jim Ryan left. People talking about the fact that Herman Hulst needs to be fired, which look, Herman Hulst has only had the job for a year, but I think a lot of people are immediately saying, was this the right call? Herman Hulst, well, he founded Guerrilla Games, he made as much possible craziness with the Killzone series, and then he really exploded the Horizon franchise. But a lot of people are saying, is Herman Hulst the person we want in charge of PlayStation, especially during this time where they're trying to do what feels like the most psychotic pivot possible? Now, this article is from about a year ago, the end of 2023, and it's about how Sony is currently in development of 12 live service games. Now, some of these have now, after writing this, have already been canceled. The Last of Us multiplayer game has been canceled. Concord was released and then just liquidated. And now, of course, there's stuff like Helldivers 2, which is also still under this umbrella. So of the 12 they're working on, 3 of the initial first wave 6 have already come out or already been deleted. And they've been extremely expensive flops. Here's my biggest concern is Concord. You're going to see people mention Concord a lot. And I do feel like it is because not only was Concord such an expensive failure, but it's the fact that it was so pricey that worries me the most. Like, they're saying they're making 12 live service games. Like, we know for a fact they spent about $200 million just doing Concord, right? Well, what happens if they decide to do even half that budget, $100 million? Let's say they spend $100 million on these 12 live service games, just trying to, average it out. That's $1.2 billion spent. How many of these games are going to be a success? How many of these games are going to be profitable? How many of these games are going to be popular? And how many games are going to flop like Concord did? I think Sony is beginning to panic because the early signs are not looking good. I did see this as well. Paul Tassi pointing out that a couple days ago, they announced the developer update for Marathon. This is the next big Sony live service game. It's a reboot of Marathon, making it an extraction shooter. Now, clearly, people are not hyped whatsoever. Look at this. The original reveal trailer has 21 million views. Now, part of this is paid ads and stuff like that. They ran this as a commercial on YouTube, which does boost the views up. But the update has 47,000 views. Let me think about that. That means that's like a 99.99% drop off, like between this and this. That's probably not a good sign. I like the fact that he says new data doc. So he says, do what you will with this. And people in the comments being like, man, I never wanted Marathon. I truly do not understand why they're doing this. Seems like they're trying to make another Concord. I think right now, PlayStation is still in a good spot overall, but I wish that we were getting more first party. Like, look at this list. These are a bunch of very good games that came out in 2024, right? But even the ones of these that are exclusives, like right now, Silent Hill 2 is an exclusive. We've got Black Myth Wukong. We've got Stellar Blade. We've got a lot of games here that are really, really, really good exclusives. Even Final Fantasy Rebirth. But of all the games on here, Helldivers 2 was helped by PlayStation Studios, so this is technically, I think they call it second party. This is not owned by Sony, but it is only going to be on Sony systems, and Astrobot. So Astrobot is the only first party game in the entire year that I feel like people are actually talking about. And to me, that is a bad sign. Like, I'm not even trying to bag on Sony or say they're lazy or incompetent or whatever like that. It's just the fact that in order to actually construct a big brand, right? I am afraid that Sony, in their effort to chase trends, in their effort to try and make sure they can have their own MMO or make sure they have their own battle pass heavy crazy experience that can be connected to every upcoming movie and have cross integration with other brands and stuff like that. I think in their effort to try and chase that huge infinite budget, I think they're kind of forgetting what actually made them big in the first place. Their games, their stories, their worlds. This is what Sony is. In my mind, to the dying breath I have, this is what Sony is. They're really good stories. They're good worlds. They're interesting cutscenes and stuff like that. Stuff that would not exist in a live service game. I keep seeing people also talk about the fact that, like, even if you don't like Concord, which, let's face it, nobody did, the fact that it's just dead is a bad sign. I think it's a bad sign for the industry, but I do think it is additionally a very bad sign for PlayStation. The fact that they made physical copies of the game, they did a crossover with that upcoming show, Secret Level. There's going to be an entire episode dedicated to Concord. How many millions and tens of millions of dollars were spent on that? Like, it is wild that it's just gone. That the legacy of this game, as pathetic, as useless, as crappy as it was, is just gone. And I think that kind of freaks me out because I like PlayStation games a lot, and I don't like the idea that stuff is just going to vanish. Stuff is just going to go up in smoke. And I do worry about the fact that if Sony pivots to live service, there will not be a way to go back. There won't be a way to be nostalgic and replay them the way that I can with my PlayStation Classic. I can go back and play the original Gran Turismo 2 or play really, really old school PlayStation stuff and love it. And now that stuff is just fading away. These studio closures from any company, the fact that we're seeing so many studios get shuttered just in general, I think that sucks. I mean, newsflash, wow, not a big game-breaking statement there, but it is weird to see Sony shutting stuff down while selling the most systems to see Xbox shutting stuff down, even though they're trying their best to claim that they're investing in the future of the industry. Like, Microsoft is buying Activision Blizzard for $69 billion, but then also closing studios down. I think the industry is coming up in a very bad spot, which is the fact that in everybody's attempt to copy off each other's homework, everybody's failing for the test because nobody freaking studied history. But these have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. What do you guys think about this? Please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. Hopefully this video isn't too bleak. I just wanted to get this out of my system because the death of Concord definitely feels like the sirens are beginning to blare. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.